First one is we had to address the annual structural deficit. That has to be part of our lingo. That has to be part of our planning assumptions every year. And if we can't offset it by new revenue, then we have to do reductions in spending in our general fund in order to address that first. We've also been trying to identify the source of those inflationary expenses. What is causing it? And I mentioned some of those before. If you're familiar with our budgeting process, a big one is always the 3,000 account, which is the benefits account. And that means employer costs, that means medical insurance. Those are the things that are effects of what we do when we provide more salary in the 1,000, 2,000 accounts. And for every dollar we put in, we have to add another almost 20% in order to support that dollar. Another guiding principle was to retain as many jobs as possible, utilizing reductions rather than full layoffs. And I really deeply mean this. Yes, I could have gone in and said, okay, I'm going to recommend 30 full layoffs and keep everybody's jobs intact. But I'm also concerned about all of our ability to be able to maintain some kind of a livable wage during this tough time. So more of the recommendations that affect personnel are built around reductions in work year, reductions in hours per day in that form, or freezing open positions as they come forward and take those into considerations. There will be layoffs, but the dominant impact will be on work year reductions. Where possible, avoid reductions that directly affect students. Now, this is not totally possible because there are not very many jobs that don't impact students. If you come to think of it, whether you are a tutor in the tutoring center or whether you're a custodian working at night, maintaining a safe environment for students so they can walk in the day, they can feel they're in a clean and healthy environment, everything we do affects students. So just to say, keep it away from the students, that's what we do. That's our business. That's what we're charged to do. So we are all affected by that. So there is no sacred cow here. There is no perfect employee population that is immune to being discussed in terms of the service or the work that is being conducted. We have to preserve some ability to serve students district-wide, and that means not only location-wise, but also time of day. I saw far too many early recommendations about, well, we'll just eliminate the evening hours in some service area, or we'll eliminate off-campus, or we'll eliminate, and that's not acceptable to me. We are a district. We are not San Luis Obispo campus. So we will serve our district wherever we provide programs and services. We also have to take into consideration who we serve. Whether this is a typical 19-year-old right out of high school who's here from 8 to 2 and then they're off and running, or that working adult who comes in at 5:30 and manages to squeeze in a class or two in the evening, we have to serve that student. So we will be providing hours of service that meet the needs of our population. So we're going to look different. Some of you will have different work schedules. You may be a 10 to 7 work schedule. You may be a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday evening person and a Tuesday, Thursday day person. We will have to rethink of how we deliver the programs and services that meet the needs of our students, not be self-serving that meets our needs as persons. I've implemented a selective hiring freeze. No position is automatically going to be filled without extreme scrutiny as to how can we get the work done another way. How can we redistribute the workload before we make a decision about filling the position? Will the position be filled the same way? Or will it be filled differently? Where will we position that position? Just because it retired or resigned in one location, maybe that work needs to be distributed somewhere else within our district. I was also given a recommendation from the Planning and Budget Committee that we're sitting on $3.6 million of contingency dollars. This is part of that, the one-time only stuff that we were getting for that peak year, plus we got $1.4 million from back payment for shortcutting our apportionment for 5 to 10 years. So we have $3.6 million. Now, as I present the numbers today, we could fix our problem this year by just using up that $3.6 million. But we don't know what's going to happen in August, September, November. Remember, the state has only solved half of the deficit. They have only addressed $12.5 billion. There's still another $12.5 billion that is unaddressed. Now, the governor's plan was to have the voters have an opportunity to extend the tax initiatives, and he couldn't get it on the ballot. So that took away a huge opportunity for us to be somewhat saved at that point. It appears to be there's going to be another attempt to put it on in November. But what does that do? That suddenly only gives it a half a year to be able to realize the benefit if the voters approve that. So my projection is we're going to see some kind of a mid-year reduction, no matter what we do today and no matter what we do in order to address the current challenges. Another recommendation and consideration is that we do have some long-term debt. The college went into debt in order to pay for buildings, pay for our computer system. When we got Banner, Banner was brought on board with a large price tag, with the understanding that the bond issue in 2006 was going to be passed and pay for it. Well, guess what happened? The bond didn't pass, did it? And we had debt. So we had to go out and borrow more money in order to pay for that. So we're sitting on about $1 million a year payment on long-term debt, and it will go up. Okay. There is an end to it, though, when it's paid off. But meanwhile, that's impacting our cash flow. But it's like everything else. When we get in a cash flow problem, we try to unload it. We refinance our houses. We do funny things. Okay. But sometimes the climate isn't favorable for us to do that. Right now, our preliminary investigation is it's not real favorable right now to be able to refinance and refund our long-term debt. Another suggestion keeps coming up, well, let's just go out for a bond, another bond. That is an excellent idea. But bonds are very interesting. Timing is everything. Bonds are expensive because every dollar that it takes to do the investigation about whether we have a climate for which the voters would approve it, the bond consultants, the preparation of that cannot be paid for by district funds. So we have to have an arm of the college, an arm of that process, which is a private group that goes out and raises money to support the bond issue, to do the political campaigning, and to do all the footwork that it takes in order to take care of a bond. And I've heard it also said, well, a bond would take care of our long-term debt. That's true. But how many of you, if you walk down in your neighborhood where you live and ask your neighbor, said, would you like to help me pay off my credit card? How many takers do you think you would get? Probably not very many. So when you do a bond has to have a compelling benefit to the voter. It has to have a life-changing impact on the voter. So when we think about a bond, we have to say, how can we structure a bond? What can we put in that bond that has an appealing element for every segment of our district? Because our district votes on those issues. Long-term debt is one of those elements. but it can't be the pivotal focal point of it. So structuring the bond is hugely dynamic and hugely important. And that was part of the issue back in 2006. The bond wasn't focused, the bond was too big, and it didn't have a broad enough appeal. Plus, what it sorely missed, it didn't have support from all of us. It didn't have support by the campus community. And if it doesn't have support from the campus community, how do you expect the voters to think it's a good deal when we can't stand up and support it ourselves? So a bond will not happen until this campus and this college is convinced that it's in our best interest and we're all willing to support the efforts that it takes and campaign for it and tell the story and influence our friends, our neighbors. Otherwise, it will not pass in San Luis County. Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to the structural deficit. Yes.
I'm sorry, sir. I have to interrupt you for a second. We've got a technical issue we need to address.
Is this going to cost money? Yeah.
Yes, I'm working.
Who do we got? All right. Okay. We needed that. It was a little grim, you know. I was even feeling grimness. Yeah.